Hello, I'm Stephen, and welcome to my honeycomb obsession. I'm going to show you how to do the honeycomb stitch and how to choose colors for the Painting Honeycombs Shawl. Now, the Painting Honeycombs Shawl you can do with any yarn weight. I have this DK weight version in multicolors here. You can do it with mohair, you can do it with fingering weight. So I'm going to share some color tips, but if you want to skip ahead to the technique tutorial and learn how to cast on the Painting Honeycombs Shawl, you can skip ahead in the video by clicking the timestamp below and get straight to that cast on and slip stitch techniques. But let's dive into these samples. I knit this shawl a couple times and I loved knitting it, so I forced some friends of mine to make some beautiful samples as well. What I love about the Painting Honeycombs Shawl is that you can use any yarn weight. So this is with DK weight for this multicolored sample, and it starts really small here at the tip. So you can grow and knit it as big as you want. So I use DK weight for this sample. My friend Linda, she made this mohair version, so you could do super fluffy honeycombs. You can use mini skeins for a ColourPop version like this. Yes, these are all the same shawl, I promise. This is the Painting Honeycombs Shawl, and just by changing the yarn color and the yarn weights, you can get these really different color effects. So these are all Painting Honeycombs Shawl. When you get the pattern, you can choose to knit these little honeycombs or get a load of this one. You could do big honeycombs as well. So this is all in the same pattern, Painting Honeycombs. The big honeycombs are knit with fingering weight yarn using 2 skeins for the main color in gray with a gradient, this super smooth blending yarn called Bilum. I'll link to all of these yarns in the description box down below. So if you want to try any of these color styles, you know where to get the yarn. So Bilum is a really smooth color gradient, but with that solid Westwool colorway, it breaks it up and gives it this stained glass melting color effect. This is the DK weight version of the Painting Honeycombs Shawl, and I love DK weight shawls because they're thicker and quicker to knit. So you can get a larger size by knitting fewer pattern repeats. I used Westwool Tandem in our Birch Tree colorway for this DK weight sample because I wanted the white neutral to frame and balance all the crazy colors that I knew had to go into this shawl. So when you're starting with a big palette like this, grab all your DK weight yarns, and I work with the philosophy of I'd rather be looking at it than looking for it. So look at all your color options. You don't have to use all of your colors, but I think it's really important to have the options just in case you get bored, and colors always change as you knit them, and you might get excited to add some purple or add some lime green, and you might not plan that from the very beginning, but have all those colors at hand just in case you're feeling a little spicy as you knit. When you work with DK weight yarns, like this La Bien-Aimée Merino DK, it's very splashy and speckly, so that main color really helps to frame the crazier splashy dye styles of these hand-dyed yarns and makes them look like stained glass little moments. They frame those little hand-dyed works of art. It's also a great opportunity to use hand-spun yarn for your contrast colors. This one's probably more like a worsted weight yarn, but in the Westknits Shawl world, DK and worsted, it's all the same. Just don't go tell too many people that, okay? With shawls, DK and worsted, it's the same. Here's some other fun solid yarns from Westwool. This is the Beatrix colorway, and a really fun marled yarn that you could use to add some extra texture to your contrast colors. So mix and match. If you don't have enough colors in DK weight, you can use fingering weight held double. So pull a strand from the inside and the outside of the ball, and 2 strands of fingering weight will make a thicker contrast pop for your DK weight shawl. If you like your shawls to be more lightweight, you can use fingering weight yarn for your main color and your contrast colors. But for this sample, I wanted a really fluffy version, so it features 2 skeins of Westwool Bicycle as the main color. This is a fingering weight wool. You could choose a neutral, like this French gray colorway, or you could pick your favorite ColourPop. This purple glue vine colorway would be a beautiful main color. And this one is cornflower. This is a really unique light shade of blue. So pick your favorite color as the main color or a neutral, and that's going to ground and form that barrier between all of your playful color pops. This fluffy version features mohair. This is a mohair silk yarn that we make for Westwool called glow hair, and this one holds 2 strands of glow hair together for extra fluffy color pops. If you just used 1 strand of glow hair, you can get more airy, lightweight contrast color sections. That would be really flowy and ethereal, but I like the extra fluff. I like to exaggerate things, if you can't tell by these color choices. So I picked all my favorite bright pops in Westwool glow hair and called those my contrast colors. So always hold 2 strands together of lace weight mohair for your contrast color pops. And just go until you run out of yarn or until it's the size that you like. For more fingering weight options, this is the way to go. If you love color or if you can't decide what color goes next, just choose all the colors, and it doesn't get much brighter than this. These are all mini skeins from Undercover Otter, and they do the most intense colors. You think you could see the brightest yellow, but Aiden at Undercover Otter makes that bright yellow even brighter, and it's just too much and just enough. So this mini skein version is great for all those little bits of yarn. You could throw in some leftover little yarn nuggets to add more color opportunities to your shawl. Or you could go into, this is quite subtle for me. This is very understated, okay? We're sticking in a color family, just the pinks and purples. You could go with just 1 color family. And when you're working in a color family like the pinks and the purples, get something really light, get something in the middle, and get something really dark. And when you have a light, medium, and dark shade option in your color palettes, I think that gives you a really nice balanced color effect. What I usually do as my main color is pick the lightest color or the darkest color in the entire color family, and that's going to make a really, really crisp contrast for your honeycomb fabrics. And I love the wrong side too. Look at that. It looks so beautiful. You could wear this right side or wrong side, and all these little ladders, these little bits, are what you're going to see in the technique tutorial coming right after this show and tell, where the slip stitches form these little floats on the back. And you're gonna see floats, you're gonna see ladders. Don't try to hide those, just let them be there. And that's part of the beautiful rippling design on the wrong side. Now, when you get the Painting Honeycombs pattern, you're going to get 1 PDF for the Painting Honeycombs shawl with these little honeycombs. That was all the samples that I just showed. But when you get the pattern, you're gonna get a bonus PDF for the big honeycombs version. Look at this. This is the same pattern, so just get 1 pattern, but you're gonna get 2 PDFs. So the big honeycombs PDF is a different shawl, but it's still honeycombs. They're just bigger honeycombs. And this is a more exaggerated motif. It's just as easy with the same techniques, but the edge is a little bit different as well. Look at that jagged, bound off edge detail. It's just so crisp and gives a beautiful finish to your shawl. So to knit a similar version to this, it's even easier because you don't need 10 million different colors. You just need 2 balls of yarn. You need a solid, like the Westwool Bicycle, 2 skeins for the main color, and the contrast color, you need 2 balls of Bilum. This is a gradient yarn that melts from these saturated, vibrant colors into these deep, shadowy moments. Some of the Bilum colorways are like so bright and rainbow. This one's really moody. So 2 balls of Bilum, and it does all the color changing for you. And 2 skeins of Westwool Bicycle. So you can get this really elegant ombre melting effect as well for painting honeycombs. This is the beginning of the Painting Honeycombs shawl. It starts with an I-cord tail, and then you pick up stitches with the main color, and then you start striping. Contrast color with the main color, and you increase at one edge of the shawl. Let's cast on with the main color. Using any cast on method you like, cast on 3 stitches, and then knit those 3 stitches. Once you knit those 3 stitches, don't turn. Slip them onto the left needle, and then knit them again. We're going to repeat that 12 more times. Knit 3, slip them onto the left needle. That was the first time. We need to do that 12 times. Second time, knit 3, slip them onto the left needle. Knit 3, and slip. So we're always looking at the same side of the work. And look at that, we're already getting a little tail. Knit 3, and slip. Do that until you can count 13 total rows of that little I-cord tail. I just finished repeating that part 12 more times. After you do that, knit 3, and then pick up and knit 13 stitches along the I-cord edge. So when you pick up stitches, you can go through both legs of a stitch and knit that picked up stitch. 1, 2, 3. Keep going until you have 13 stitches picked up from the I-cord edge. After you pick up 13 stitches along the I-cord edge, you should have 16 total stitches, including the first 3. Turn to work the wrong side. Pick up and knit 3 stitches along the I-cord cast-on edge. You can start here with this first little strand of yarn, put it onto the needle and knit through it. So again, any strand of yarn here at that cast-on edge, get it onto the left needle and knit it. And let's get 2 more strands of yarn. Any strands of yarn at the cast-on edge work just fine. And let's get 1 more. That is a strand of yarn. Okay, 3 stitches. Now we can knit 13. Once you knit that 13th stitch, slip 3 with yarn in front. So make sure the yarn is forward and then slip the last 3 stitches with yarn in front. Turn to work row 1, right side. Knit 3, purl front back, purl into the front, and then purl into the back of the stitch, and then take it off. I'll do that 1 more time. Purl into the front, and purl into the back loop of that stitch. And look at that, we just did our increase. Purl front back, getting 2 stitches coming from 1 stitch. Purl to last 3 stitches. When you reach the last 3 stitches, keep the yarn in front. So keep the yarn in the front of your work and slip the last 3 stitches with yarn in front. Row 2, wrong side. Knit to last 3 stitches. Once you reach the last 3 stitches, slip 3 with yarn in front. Bring the yarn forward and slip 3. Keep the main color attached because we're going to introduce a contrast color, but the main color is going to come back again and again, so we don't have to break the main color. Using the contrast color, knit 3, knit front back, knit into the front and the back of the stitch, slip 3 with yarn and back, 1, 2, 3, knit 7, 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, slip 3 with yarn and back, and bring the yarn forward to slip the last 3 stitches with yarn in front. That last bit was a little funky because we slipped these 3 with the yarn in back, but when you slip the last 3, you need to bring the yarn forward. So you see that contrast color travels along the back of the work, and then you bring it to the front to slip those last 3. Row 4, wrong side, knit 3, slip 3 with yarn in front. Make sure the yarn is in the front as you slip those 3 stitches. Purl 7, slip the 3 main color stitches with yarn in front. Make sure you always slip with yarn in front on the wrong side. And then at the end of the row, purl 2 and slip the last 3 stitches with yarn in front. We're going to work a few more rows with the contrast color, and they'll be very similar to what you just did. Knit 3, row 5, knit 3, knit front back, knit 1, and slip those 3 with the yarn in back, knit 7, slip 3 with yarn in back, bring the yarn forward to slip the last 3 with yarn in front. So keep following rows 6, 7, and 8 with the contrast color, using those same techniques, increasing at the beginning of the right side, slipping the main color stitches with the yarn in back, and then you're slipping those main color stitches with the yarn in front on the wrong side. So you just want to make sure that you get these nice white columns, and you don't want to accidentally see a belt traveling on top of those white stitches with your contrast color. I'm finishing row 8 on the wrong side. Whenever you slip those main color stitches, you don't have to worry too much about slipping them too tight or too loose. Just slip them onto the needle, and I'm purling the next stitches, purling to the last 3 stitches. Slip those last 3 stitches with yarn in front. And yeah, don't worry too much about slipping too tight or too loose. If the yarn travels a little tightly across those stitches, that's totally fine. And if you're a bit looser knitter, it's also okay for this technique, because you're still going to get those nice main color columns appearing on the right side. So after you finish row 8, you can break your yarn, and then we're going to work the main color again. So row 9, right side, uses the main color again. You just broke that contrast color. We have all these tails. What are you going to do with these tails? Well, I'm going to show you. Row 9, knit 3. After you knit the first 3 stitches, you can do my Weavin Stephen trick, where you take the tail of yarn that you just broke and you cross it on top of your working yarn. Okay, I knit 3, knit front back. After you knit front back, you can do another Weavin Stephen And I'm knitting to the last 3 stitches now. Look at this. After every single stitch, you can do the Weavin Stephen. Weave in your ends as you go. I do this for about 8 to 10 stitches or so. I think 10 stitches is better. Yeah, 10 to 12. Always do a couple extra. If you're holding the yarn in your right hand, you're going to knit a stitch and then take that tail and cross it on top of your working yarn. Knit and cross, knit and cross. Let's do that one more time. Knit and cross. And then just keep knitting with your main color to the last 3 stitches. So what we just did, okay, knit to the last 3 stitches, row 9, slip 3 with yarn in front. Okay, look at this. What we just did was we trapped that tail of yarn on the wrong side, and when you're done, you can just cut it about right there, and then your end is woven in. So you have all of these fun color stripes, these colorful honeycomb pops. But if you do this trick, every time you break your contrast color yarn, you won't have to weave in any ends. You can do the same thing to the original tail of yarn as soon as you introduce a new contrast color. So if I'm going to do this gold next as my next contrast color, as soon as you introduce that contrast color for row 3, right side, you can do the Weavin Stephen and trap that tail in. So you can use all of these colors, all of these stripes, and your ends will be worked in as you knit. Super easy. It's really fun to do these honeycombs because, again, you're only working with one color at a time. And as you carry the main color up the edge, you will see it on the wrong side. So here's this strand of yarn, the main color, that's traveling from one stripe to the next stripe. You will see it, so just be careful. Whenever you're using the main color again for row 9, just don't pull the yarn too tightly. You're going to want to see that little gap, that little distance as it travels from one stripe to the next. But yeah, when in doubt, just don't overthink it, okay? Follow the rows stitch by stitch, and it gets a lot easier as you go. So once you get accustomed to the pattern repeat, your mind can really go free and wild with color choices. I use DK weight, worsted weight, and look at these little fluffy accents. These are Melted Baby Surrey. It's this really soft yarn, but it's a little bit thinner than DK weight. So I held one strand of fingering weight wool together with that fluffy yarn. So feel free to mix and match all your different types of yarns and feature them for your honeycomb pops. So I hope those color and technique tips helped you with your painting Honeycombs shawl. If you start this shawl, and especially if you finish it, I would love to see your progress. You can share them on Ravelry. You can share your project under the Painting Honeycombs Shawl project, and you can share them with the hashtag Painting Honeycombs Shawl on Instagram. So I'd love to see what colors you choose, and if you take the pattern overboard like I do and use all the colors in your stash, I'd love to see that. And once you try this simple technique, I think you'll be addicted. And then you might be making the honeycomb blanket and scarf and hat. So I'm wearing the hat and the sweater, and these use the same exact techniques. So you can use this shawl as a little trial, a little first date to see if you like the honeycombs. And then if it's successful, you can go on a second date and a third date, and then you'll just have a lifetime commitment to honeycombs. And they'll take over your life just like they did mine. So I can't wait to see what you make, and share all your projects on Instagram. And all my patterns are on Ravelry.com and Gumroad.com/Westknits. So I'll see you all in the next video.